Arun SHOURIE is my guest here on We Connect this week. And I'm sure that you're going to find him extremely interesting, as I am already, and I'm glad that you're still here with us. Now, we were talking about the judiciary. I'm going to move away a little bit and now talk to you and ask you, what do you think about the media as it exists today? I mean, we all know you, we've read your writings, you've been the editor of the Indian Express, you've been the editor of the Times of India. So where do you think we stand as media people?
Madam, I think we are not using the freedom we have to good purpose.
Really?
Yes, I think it's because it is true that much of the such little bit of the accountability as there is because of a few judges and a few newspapers and TV channels.
Yeah.
But in general, there are few countries in the world in which journalists have as much freedom as they have in India. But with this shortening of the horizon, that it is the breaking news of this shift, not even of today, then nobody fears you, because you are on you have broken something today, and
we've forgotten about it tomorrow.
And actually tomorrow's news will erase today's news in the mind of the viewer. So I think that is one difficulty. Second difficulty is that people don't do not do enough research. It's wrong to blame owners and others for this. Which owner or anybody would prevent a journalist from working, let's say, on the defense budget? It's the largest we don't work. We don't read Supreme Court judgments, or we don't read the law ourselves. It is just Jennifer says this, Arun says this, end of story.
End of story, right.
Let's go to the next story. So that is another difficulty. I think the third difficulty is this almost incestuous relationship between journalists and the subjects about whom they are to write, whether they are industrialists or they are corporate houses, or they are political parties and political leaders. This Mr. Ramnath Goenka used to tell us that there are 4 things. He had a Sanskrit saying for this, that you should not be either too close to them or too far from them.
So what's that middle road?
Well, a road in which I will be able to, in the case, let's say, of a politician,
yes,
or in at enough distance, enough proximity that I can get information from him, but enough distance that I would not feel hesitant in talking the whole truth about the person or the political party or anybody.
Right, right. You yourself have said that words and the pen, and I presume now you would say microphone to add to that comment of yours, that should be used very wisely, in a useful fashion. How much more do you think, Mr. SHOURIE, we can actually be using the power that's in our hands?
A limitless power, because there is no legitimacy now with the politician. All legitimacy has gone to the middle class, which includes us professionals, yes, and the entrepreneurs. If Mr. Narayan Murthy says something about the economy, everybody will believe him, or Mr. Ratan Tata.
Yes.
But they will not believe any finance minister. So that legitimacy should be used. The same thing for journalists. But the journalists must be seen to be persons who are now authorities on a particular subject.
And credible.
Yes, credible and authorities. That's not the case.
Right. But having said that, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but having said that, I find that people like ourselves always end up as the whipping boy and the whipping girl for a lot of institutions, for a lot of politicians, for a lot of political parties, just across the board.
The problem, Jennifer, is that okay, they will whip us. But the question is, will the viewer listen to their castigation or to us?
That's true.
And that depends on what you said about credibility,
yes,
about the facts which we have brought on record. See,
right,
otherwise if somebody says, I've been misquoted, but when you can play the thing,
yes, that's true.
Who will be believed? But it is when journalists are making these fabulous salaries and monies, their own lifestyle is such, and then they are talking about poverty, or their own practices are quite questionable. For instance, in paid news.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Big thing, isn't it?
Yes. And when those practices, after all, those are visible to the reader. Every morning we are in front of the reader. Every hour we are in front of the television viewer.
Right, yes.
And then when he sees, see these fellows, they are not truthful. Then the person who castigates us is believed.
Then we deserve it then in that case.
Well,
really
then we are
that,
not being as careful as we should be.
Yes. What about sensationalism? Do you think that that's what a lot of channels and a lot of newspapers we're actually guilty of?
Not the mainline newspapers as much. I think people are carried away by trivia, not by sensation. I mean, that's what the problem of many channels
Yes,
and many of these anchors and so on. Sort of the, it's the big conspiracy of the day, of the last. I heard one of these fellows saying, "Oh, it's the biggest controversy of the last 24 hours."
24 hours. That's news for you.
And that was actually about Mamta Banerjee and the judiciary.
I know. Well, she hogged the headlines for a long while, didn't she? Well, that's a long. 24 hours is quite long in the business of television news. What about this whole thing now about Assam and the situation there? I think that's very important. I'd really like to draw you out on that.
Madam, now for almost for 35 years, I've been writing about the threat of that arises from illegal migration from Bangladesh. We've done all sorts of work on that. I supported the Assam students, and 700 of them were gunned down during Mrs. Gandhi's time. So this is the result of the cumulative result of all that. And the Bodos, in a sense, you see what happens is, we all feel, oh, why is there violence? But when a state fails to discharge its primary responsibilities, then a helpless society takes its revenge itself, in its own hands.
In the best way it knows how.
Yes.
Right.
And then many innocents and all will be killed and injured and their properties ransacked because the well-off are beyond the reach of the mob.
Yes.
So that is what is happening. This is in a very sensitive area, which is just in the chicken's neck business.
Yes.
So strategically very important. And nobody listened to the Bodos. So what should they do? Now that's not to justify violence, but that is the inevitable result. If you don't want that violence, please act for 30 years earlier. And do not let such situations arise.
Right.
And in fact, in a sense, I feel that the northeastern people have been too tolerant. I've been going there, too tolerant. In Punjab, from where I come, no infiltrator will come and be able to take our land. We'll just kill him.
They won't dare.
Yes.
No, that's true.
So too kind.
Yes, that's right. Time, unfortunately, for another short break, but we'll get right back. Please don't go anywhere because I've got lots more in this last segment coming up.